The 1985 FA Cup semi-finals remain one of the clearest examples of how football can deliver extraordinary levels of drama, intensity, and passion. Across two ties and more than 5 hours of football, thousands of supporters were treated to a spectacle staged in neutral venues chosen for their closeness to the participating clubs. The season itself had already been disrupted by heavy snow and outbreaks of violence that marred earlier rounds of the competition, so when the semi-final fixtures were drawn up, Luton Town against Everton on one side and Manchester United against Liverpool on the other, it seemed like the perfect antidote to all the chaos and disappointment, a chance to focus solely on football at its most compelling. The standout clash, of course, was Manchester United versus Liverpool, a tie brimming with history, rivalry, and sheer anticipation. Once the draw was made, the fixture at Goodison Park on April 13 was circled as the glamour tie of the round, but before that meeting both squads had to navigate hectic schedules involving league matches, European fixtures, and even international duty. Manchester United, for their part, had narrowly been knocked out of the UEFA Cup on penalties by Hungarian side Videoton in the quarter-finals, and although they still clung to faint hopes of winning their first league championship since 1967, a damaging defeat to Sheffield Wednesday days before the semi-final virtually ended their chances. Liverpool, meanwhile, had practically secured a place in the European Cup final after demolishing Panathinaikos 4-0 at Anfield in the first leg of their semi-final, but domestically their title hopes were over, their loss at home to United all but confirming that their run of 3 straight league titles would not become 4. Adding to the burden, both clubs saw many of their players involved in international games during the build-up. England faced the Republic of Ireland at Wembley in a friendly that gave United goalkeeper Gary Bailey his first international cap, while Brian Robson, Jim Beglin, Mark Lawrenson, Paul McGrath, and Frank Stapleton were also involved. Even more demanding was the World Cup qualifier at Hampden Park, where Wales defeated Scotland 1-0 courtesy of a goal by Ian Rush. That match also featured the likes of Mark Hughes, Steve Nicol, Arthur Albiston, Alan Hansen, and Kenny Dalglish. These international contests were in many ways a warm-up to the real battle, the FA Cup semi-final. Despite Liverpool's domination of the English game during the 1980s, two nagging issues continued to haunt them: their inability to regularly beat Manchester United and their long drought in the FA Cup, which they had not won since 1974. Their run to the 1985 semi-finals was their best in 5 years, but their record against United in the league throughout the decade was poor, with only 2 wins in 20 attempts. While Liverpool fans could point to their 1983 League Cup final victory as a consolation, United remained their bogey side. For that reason alone, the draw seemed ominous, and it would soon prove correct, although not before 2 unforgettable matches unfolded. The first meeting at Goodison Park was a pulsating contest that United should arguably have won. With Bailey and Norman Whiteside back in the side and Hughes fit enough to start, United looked sharper and more confident. Brian Robson, always a talisman in big games, gave them the lead in the 69th minute with a goal created from a near-post flick on at a corner. With Hughes and Stapleton troubling Liverpool's defence and McGrath nullifying Ian Rush, United looked destined for Wembley. But with just minutes remaining, Ronnie Whalen curled in a stunning equaliser, echoing his famous Milk Cup strike in 1983, forcing extra time and breaking United's momentum. United again regained control in extra time, Stapleton putting them ahead after a deflected effort from Hughes's hard work. Yet, just when it seemed they had done enough, Paul Walsh snatched an equaliser in controversial fashion. Television replays suggested the linesman had raised his flag for offside before Kenny Dalglish dispossessed Gordon Strachan and crossed for Rush, whose header was parried by Bailey into Walsh's path. Despite protests, the goal stood, and Liverpool escaped with a replay. Joe Fagan admitted afterwards that his side had been lucky, acknowledging United had deserved more. The replay at Main Road just 4 days later carried all the tension of the first match but even more atmosphere, the stadium rocking with an intensity that journalists later described as nuclear compared to the electric energy of Goodison. Liverpool suffered a blow before kick-off when Rush was ruled out injured, yet they took the lead through an own goal by McGrath. Nicol then missed a glorious chance to double the advantage, and United held on to halftime needing inspiration. That inspiration arrived in the form of Robson, whose reputation as Captain Marvel was once again justified. Receiving a pass from Stapleton just inside Liverpool's half, Robson powered past Lawrenson and unleashed a thunderous 25-yard strike that Grobbelaar could do nothing about. It was a goal of sheer determination and quality, the kind that elevates a player's status instantly. United's belief soared, and soon Hughes scored what proved to be the winner, though Liverpool fiercely argued he was offside. At full-time, Robson was carried aloft by jubilant fans who streamed onto the pitch, his performance securing his legendary status yet again. Looking back, those matches were not only thrilling contests but also demonstrations of everything that made English football so captivating in the 1980s. The atmosphere at Goodison had been extraordinary, but Main Road was on another level, a deafening cauldron of passion and noise that even television could barely capture. For spectators, it was unforgettable, and for players, it must have been even more overwhelming. Writers of the time described it as pure, unfiltered football, a brutal yet beautiful slugfest played at breakneck pace in front of fiercely committed supporters. Even decades later, revisiting the highlights sends shivers down the spine, proof that the 1985 semi-finals were a golden chapter in the history of the FA Cup.